Hi everyone, it's Mrs. Martello. We're going to continue working in section 7.4. We're looking at example 4 here. I'm on page 380. Okay, in example 4, we're going to solve the equation by factoring. So let's write down some steps of how to solve the equation by factoring. Solve an equation by factoring. And we are using the GCF to factor, and to solve we're going to use the zero product property like how we did in examples 1 and 2. So our first step that we need to do is we need to start setting up and getting ready to use the zero product property. So the first word in the zero product property is zero. That means that our equation must be equal to 0. If the equation is not equal to 0, that's your first step, is you need to get the equation equal to 0. Okay, the second step is we need to have the equation in factored form so that it shows a product of factors. So I need a product of factors. Okay, if it's not a product of factors, then you're going to factor out the GCF. If not, factor out the GCF. Okay, once I have this 0 equal to 0, once I have the product of its factors, then we can actually solve it. So our third step is what we did in examples 1 and 2. We're going to set each factor equal to 0 and solve. Okay, we're going to take a look at example 4 here. Okay, I'm going to copy it down and we're going to do it together. So in part A, I have 2x squared plus 8x equals 0. So I'm going to just show my work on my piece of paper over here. So to do this equation, I need to follow the steps. The first step I see is that the equation is equal to 0, which is a good thing. But this is not a product of factors. This is a sum of two monomials. In order for this to be a product, I need to find the GCF and take the GCF out of these two terms. So let's do that. Let's look at the numbers first. I have 2 and 8. The GCF would be 2. Now let's look at our numbers. Actually, let me skip a line here just so that I can show my work. Our variables, we have x squared and x. So the smaller variable is going to be x. So now I need to divide this 2x out of each term, and I'm going to do it like how I did before. Divide each term by 2x. I find that this is helpful in the beginning. All right, so let's divide. The 2's are going to cancel out, and then x squared divided by x is just x. I'm going to bring my plus sign in here. Let's divide. 8 divided by 2 is 4, and these x's cancel out. And this is equal to 0. Now, this is a product of factors. 2x times x plus 4 equals 0. So now let's do the third step. I'm going to set each factor equal to 0 and solve. So my first factor is 2x. Let's say 2x equals 0. Or our second factor is x plus 4. So x plus 4 equals 0. We're going to solve each equation. Divide each side by 2. I get x equals 0 for my first answer. Second one, we're going to subtract 4 from both sides. And I get x equals -4. That's my second answer. All right, so we just solved this equation using factoring by doing the GCF and the zero product property. All right, let's look at letter B. Letter B is a little bit different. Look at how it starts. We have 6n squared equals 15n. 6n squared equals 15n. The first thing you should notice in this equation is that it's not equal to 0. That's our first step. The equation has to be equal to 0 before I can start solving it. So I want to keep the higher degree term positive. Since this has n squared and this one only has n, it's better that this has a positive coefficient. So I'm going to keep the 6n squared here. Let's move the 15n to the other side, make this side equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract 15n from both sides. And let's get this all on the left side. So remember, these are not like terms. This is n squared. This is only n. They do not have the same exponent, so they cannot be combined. We're going to keep them separate. 6n squared minus 15n equals 0. Now my equation is equal to 0. Now we can solve. So next up, I need to factor. I need to get a product of factors. Let's find the GCF. So my numbers, I have 6 and 15. The GCF would be 3. My variables, I have n squared and n. The smaller exponent is n. Let's divide it out of each term. 6 divided by 3 is 2. N squared divided by n is n. I'm going to carry down my minus sign. 15 divided by 3 is 5. N divided by n, they cancel out. And this is equal to 0. So now I factored it. I took out the greatest common factor of 3n times the remaining polynomial, 2n minus 5, equals 0. Let's set each factor equal to 0. So 3n equals 0, or our second polynomial, 2n minus 5, equals 0. Our first one, we would divide both sides by 3. I get n equals 0. Our second one, I would add 5 to both sides, then divide by 2, and I would get n equals 5 over 2. Or you can say 2.5. That would be fine as well. Okay, let's do 2 more of these just to make sure that we got it. We're going to take a look at monitoring progress numbers 8 and 10. So in number 8, I have a squared plus 5a equals 0. Okay, we're going to solve the equation. First, notice how the equation is equal to 0. That's a good thing. But this is not a product of factors. So let's find the GCF. Let's take it out. So our number in front of this variable is really a 1. The GCF of 1 and 5 would just be 1. I don't really need to write the 1. Then I'm going to look at the variables. I have a squared and a. So my GCF of those two would be a. So again, if you want to, you can say 1a, or you can just say a. All right, we're going to divide it out of each term. So a squared divided by a is just a. Remember, you subtract the exponents. Bring my plus sign in here. 5a divided by 1a, or a, would just be 5. The a's cancel out. Equals 0. Let's set each factor equal to 0. So our first factor is a equals 0, and we don't need to solve it. It's already done. Or a plus 5 equals 0. Let's solve for a. We're going to minus 5 from both sides. I get a equals negative 5. Okay, let's do one more together. We're going to look at number 10. Okay, I have 4x squared equals 2x. Okay, again, we're going to solve this equation. Okay, when I solve this equation, the first step is I need to get this equation equal to 0. Since this has the higher degree term, I want to keep that coefficient positive. Let's move the 2x to the other side. So we're going to subtract 2x from both sides. Remember, these are not like terms. They don't have the same exponent, so they're going to stay separate. 4x squared minus 2x equals 0. Now it's equal to 0. Now I'm ready to factor out the GCF. So let's find the GCF. Our numbers, I have 4 and 2. The GCF would be 2. Our variables, x squared and x, the smaller exponent is x. Let's divide it out. 4x squared divided by 2x would be 2x. minus 2x divided by 2x. Well, remember, anything divided by itself would be 1. So I do have something here. They don't just go away. 2x divided by 2x would be 1 equals 0. All right, we're ready to solve. We're going to set each factor equal to 0. So 2x equals 0, or 2x minus 1 equals 0. Let's get our two answers. Divide both sides by 2, we get x equals 0. Our second one, we're going to add 1, then divide by 2, so x equals 1 over 2. And that is solving equations by factoring.